Welcome, everyone. As Holly mentioned, this is a second of a series of webinars on emotional and social intelligence. So what kind of got us started on this was we had several franchisors I've spoken to in the last year to 2 years that have been talking about franchisees that just don't seem to have the stick-to-it-ness that we may have had in recent years, or years past, I should say. So they don't have that kind of tenacity and perseverance and commitment and ability to overcome obstacles. So as a scientist, I wanted to look at, was this a new trend? Were people more indecisive and lazy and non-committal in recent years than they were in the past? I wanted to see what the issues might be from a scientific perspective. So we began to look at some of the stats that we gather when we're working with prospective franchisees as well as current franchisees within franchise systems using our profiling tool. And there were several markers that were showing a dangerous trend in franchising, one of which we addressed last month. Today I would like to kind of look a little deeper into a couple more markers in something that we're calling grit. So the trend that we noticed was indeed that over the last few generations, there is a decline, a steep and steady decline in the area of commitment, that stick-to-it-ness that we talked about. We also were noticing there was a difference and a steady decline in optimism from the boomer generation to Generation X to the millennials. And nothing really changed. In fact, people's drive for success continued to remain at about the same place. So they have this drive, but they don't have the commitment. They don't have the optimism. They don't take initiative. These numbers, by the way, in initiative are extremely low. So that had us dig more deeply, right? So the question is why and what can we do about it? And how can we help people have more grit? Much of this work comes from Dr. Daniel Goleman, the emotional and social intelligence work. So I always want to give credit where credit is due. If you haven't read his books, they are wonderful books for business management. And we use a lot of the logic in our Zorkel Eclipse report and a Zorkel Edge report and a Zorkel Spot On profile with the emotional and social intelligence markers. In fact, there are 20 emotional and social intelligence markers that we measure, 11 of which you see right here, and have a lot to do with this idea of grit. Some of the markers you will notice that relate to grit are, of course, this commitment, initiative, which is actually a form of courage, optimism, the belief that things can be different, the belief that I can get better, the belief that I can accomplish what I need to accomplish, and of course all the areas around self-control, self-discipline, the ability to accurately read who I am and self-assess, and then, of course, make the adaptation. So many of the grit markers are right here in the emotional and social intelligence markers. It's like an amalgamation of markers that ultimately comes under this header of grit. We learned last month that commitment is indeed a muscle. The better we are at committing, the better we become at commitment. But let's look at grit. That's another level of what is necessary for folks to be successful. In fact, there's a lot of research on what causes people to be successful. And the one thing that seems to come up again and again is this thing called grit. So what exactly is grit? Grit is a constancy of effort over time, not just doing something for, a week or a month, but doing it for years and doing it day in and day out. So grit means to pursue something with consistency of interest and effort. So not only am I doing it to make money, but I'm interested in what I'm doing, and I'm putting in the effort. Doing so ultimately increases my grit, increases my passion, and most importantly, increases my results. If you've not studied the science of grit, I would recommend you take a look at Dr. Angela Duckworth, who sort of made the term famous. She's a psychologist, an author, and an academic. She's also the founder and CEO of Character Lab, and she focuses a lot on these various character traits specifically for children, but they are applicable to the world of business ownership also. But she looks at these character traits as it relates to performance psychology. So she basically says grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. In our discussions last month, we talked about how it's becoming more difficult for us to think of life as a marathon. We are doing things in sound bites. Our attention span as a society is getting smaller. Our ability, both emotionally and physically, to make commitments and to hang in there is being reduced from generation to generation. I think we're going to see some serious consequences in the world of franchising because our franchisees and we as human beings ourselves lack this kind of grit. So I'd like to share with you what Dr. Duckworth believes grit is, some attributes of grit, and then share with you 5 ways that you can build grit in yourself, and of course, in those that you love, you can encourage, and if you're working with franchisees, ways that you might be able to encourage that within your franchisees. This is Malcolm Gladwell, and if you've not read his books, Outlier or Tipping Point, great business books. He's a researcher, again, of performance. We're talking high performance, the top 5% in any field: math, music, sciences, business performance, sports. He is a studier of extreme performance. And one of the things he says, and Dr. Duckworth says, and we have seen here at Zoracle, is that there really is no domain, math, music, art, sports, business, there is no domain of expertise that has been studied where the world-class performers have put in fewer than 10 years of consistent, deliberate practice to get where they are. 10,000 hours is what Malcolm says. So if you can get in 10,000 hours in 5 years, good for you. But basically, to become a high performer requires this level of grit, of doing it day in and day out over time. And yet, as a society, we are losing our grittiness, I guess, if that's even a word. So the idea that raw talent can allow us to be successful. We're great salespeople. We're great negotiators. We are great at managing people. The idea that raw talent can get us to a place of success is a poor presupposition. We also have to have this thing called grit. Talent combined with grit will have us be high performers. You can have great shooting a basket skills, but if you're not doing it day in and day out, you're going to plateau in your performance and in many ways even atrophy in whatever area of talent that you might have. So effort, practice, and time on task is what really determines our ultimate performance. With so many things pulling us this way and that way, it's oftentimes hard to put in that level of grittiness. Dr. Duckworth says, talent counts once. Yes, your talent in convincing people, your talent in managing people, your talent in shooting a basketball, that counts. But effort will count twice. I share this photo of Manami Ito, sorry about that, who's a professional violinist. She has one arm. She has learned to play the violin to epic levels. This is someone where the raw talent was not there. She didn't have the physical capacity like all other violinists out there. And yet this grit that she has, this effort that she has put in, has made her a phenomenal violinist. So think of it as 1 for talent, 2 for effort. In this case, with a disability, she is likely putting in even greater than double the effort to compensate for the physical weaknesses that she has. So talent times effort equals a skill. If you're going to be skiing, if you're going to be a public speaker, whatever it is, your talent, your raw talent, plus your effort will equal a developed skill. But taking that skill, becoming a better public speaker, and then doing it day in and day out, giving presentation after presentation after presentation, getting mentoring, getting coaching, watching the videos of yourself, doing that public speaking, will ultimately be what causes you to be a superstar, to achieve. So you need talent, but not nearly as much as you need effort and grit. And even then, once you have a skill, then it requires additional effort to get to those levels of achievement. Now, I'm exhausted just thinking about all of that, but I can tell you there is huge payoff financially and other ways, including personal satisfaction, when we have this level of grit. One of the things Dr. Doc Work says is you can't be a flake. Being gritty means you are able to stick on task. You can stay focused. You stay the course. In fact, there's a negative correlation to change ability. For those individuals that just love change, you will see less success in your life. Those that love doing things differently simply for the novelty of something. And let's go back to the idea of being a great salesperson as an example. When you have a script and you have a process, when you do it day in and day out, when you study the interactions on the phone, that tone of voice, that gesture, those words, the pace of what you are doing, if you study it, and you do it again and again and again, you are going to get better and better and better. But there are folks, and if you're one of those folks, I'm going to caution you, who get bored doing the same thing again and again. They love trying something new, and they like having a wild card. Think of it as being a ship where you're out to sea and you start heading towards a port. And then all of a sudden you change your mind and you see another port and you turn your ship and you go in that direction. And then before you get to the port where the abundance is, the success is, you change your mind again and go another direction. So you're out to sea receiving very little benefit for doing so. You never get to shore. You never get to that place of success. So staying the course is what grit is all about.